Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. A little bit of college football. And that is because Wednesday was National Signing Day in college football. Now, obviously, look, it's the second National Signing Day, as all your favorite college football radio hosts and TV hosts and podcasters and whoever have told you, it is obviously a lot different in February than it used to be. We used to have one National Signing Day. Everybody would sign in February. That's all when all the crazy stuff would happen. Guys were pulling live animals out of bags. Remember Isaiah Crowell pulled a live bulldog out to announce he was going to Georgia? Well, times have changed. Most guys sign in December now. But there were a few notable stories going into this National Signing Day, and there was one very notable player who we didn't really totally know where he was going to go. His name was Terry Bussey, five-star athlete, and I use the word athlete quite literally because this kid plays on offense, he plays on defense, he's a kick returner, he's a punt returner, and fascinating recruitment. He's from a small town in East Texas called Timpson, Texas. Committed to A&M during the fall. Then obviously Jimbo Fisher gets fired, reopens his commitment, does a bunch of visits, goes to Georgia, whatever. But it feels like it's coming down to Texas A&M and LSU. Don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, maybe some of you guys knew, maybe some of you had insight that I didn't, but I called around and it felt like nobody really knew exactly what was going to happen. A lot of LSU fans on social media seem very confident. Well, I bring it up because on Wednesday, he did make his final commitment. He did sign his letter of intent, and Terry Bussey, five-star athlete from Timpson, Texas, commits to, drumroll please, he committed to the Texas A&M Aggies. So let me say this. Listen, I'm not going to do the thing that I have done in the past, and I'm going to say, it's the biggest thing that's ever happened for Texas A&M. There's a lot of steps. This thing is getting rebuilt, but this is a huge, huge, huge recruiting win for Texas A&M. And I think more importantly, it is a huge, huge, huge recruiting win for Mike Elko. Let's go ahead and let's dive in. And let me say this. Listen, one of the things I love about following recruiting in high school, and I'm not an expert by any stretch, just so many cool stories of kids, of families, of relationships, of this, of that, of whatever. Terry Bussey might have the most unique one in 2024. As I said, small town in Texas called Timpson, Texas, okay? And when I say small, that's not hyperbole. That's not like, it's a small town of 75,000. He comes from a town of 9, according to the census, according to the Wikipedia page, which includes him as a prominent member of the community, 991 people in the town of Timpson, Texas. How about this? He goes to Timpson High School. Obviously, look, could have transferred, could have gone to an IMG, could have gone to one of these prep schools, could have gone wherever, decides to stay in his hometown. Leads them to a state title. I'll be honest, I actually watched a little bit of the state title game. It was unbelievable. He plays in 2A football in Texas, which is kind of crazy. It's schools with 253 students or fewer. So 991 total people in the town, 253 people or fewer in his high school. That gives you some perspective on how small his town is. And this is how good he was at that level. By the way, because I know I'll have some fans from other schools get in here and say, anyone can do that at that level. He went to the Under Armour All-American game, balled out. Went to another All-Star game in January, balled out. So this isn't a kid that just did it against overmatched competition. This kid has gone to every camp, every this, every that. He's been elite. But I bring it up because I want to list you the stats, okay? So he is a guy that will not play quarterback in college, but he was kind of one of those kids that, best athlete in town. They put the ball in his hands. They let him play quarterback. They let him play defense, etc. Here are his senior year stats. He threw for 2,691 yards and 36 touchdowns. He rushed for 1,595 yards and 25 touchdowns. So quick math there, that is what? Over 4,000 yards of total offense, over 56, 57, something like that. Let me do the math here. 35 and 25, 35 and 20 is 55, 60, 61 total touchdowns. So 4,000 yards, 60 total touchdowns. And then how about this? Tallied 85 tackles, 7 interceptions, and 2 defensive touchdowns, not to mention two punt returns for touchdowns. By the way, hope my TD math was right on that. Otherwise, I'm going to feel like a real idiot. Anyway, enough about Torres' math. 4,000 yards, 60-plus touchdowns, 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 special teams touchdowns. And I will say from the A&M perspective, I think that's the most interesting question involved in this story and in this commitment. Where does he end up playing when he gets to A&M? I think when Jimbo was recruiting him, I do believe that they basically said, we can try playing you both ways. I don't know if Mike Elko plans to do the same. I know that Elko and his staff went really heavy on the defensive backfield, cornerback, etc. when he got there through the portal. So maybe he starts at wide receiver. Maybe he starts on the defensive side. I don't know. I just know, again, 60 touchdowns, 4,000 yards. I don't care what level that is incredible. And as I said, for people who want to talk about, well, it's just because he played in a small town. No, he was awesome at all these All-Star games. Anyway, kid is amazing. You've probably figured that out by now. What I think is as important, in my opinion, is that I think this is huge for Mike Elko as the head coach at Texas A&M. And it's for a few reasons. And Mike Elko, to his credit, by the way, it's been kind of quiet at Texas A&M, right? That was just a noisy program in college football. But since he's gotten there, listen, we'll get to the positive in a minute. But obviously, like every new head coach, whether it's Kalen DeBoer, whether it's whoever, pick a guy that's new at a different school. There's always going to be questions. And I do think in Mike Elko's case, the questions are pretty straightforward, right? It's like, is he going to be able to coach at the SEC level? And more importantly, like, is he going to be able to recruit at the SEC level? Because you can criticize Jimbo Fisher for a lot. I certainly have. But at the same time, I do think it's kind of worth noting. Blame Jimbo Fisher for a lot, but he proved you can sign top 5 classes at Texas A&M. You can sign elite players, elite classes, etc. So Jimbo Fisher, the threshold on the field wasn't always the best, but the threshold in recruiting, he proved you can do it. And so that was the big question with Elko. Can he recruit at this level? Well, I'll say this. That is a huge win for Elko from a perception standpoint as well as you go into the 2025 cycle. Because at the end of the day, listen, I thought a lot of it was overrated. I thought a lot of the conversation was overrated. Remember, this is a guy that was at A&M forever as a defensive coordinator. Remember, most of that 2022 elite recruiting class was recruited when he was the defensive coordinator. Many of those kids that are still on the roster committed to play for him. And so I just bring it up because I never really worried that much, but we understand that there's always going to be a perception thing. And we also understand, and this is kind of important, right, is the fact that, the first couple weeks on the job were chaotic and guys did leave. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know how many of them he really wanted to keep, but A&M had what, like 30 guys total, 25 guys total between when Jimbo was fired and when things calmed down that entered the portal. And there were a few big names. Walter Nolan to Ole Miss, Evan Stewart to Oregon, Fidel Diggs to Syracuse. So like good players did leave that program. And so the question was, can you retain the guys that you need and can you recruit going forward? And he does that. This is the first big win for him, but I'm here to tell you, I just don't believe it'll be the last one. Okay. One, like I said, he's been at A&M. He's been in the SEC. He knows what he's getting himself into. Like, I don't think Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is going to be bad either. Just like Brian Kelly, I didn't think was going to be bad. But there is something to guys that have never been in the SEC coming in for the first time. Well, Mike Elko's been here. He's done that. He's lived in this region. He lived in that state. He knows those communities. He knows those coaching staffs. He knows those high school people that you need to know. I think everyone knows this, but first week on the job, went to the Texas High School Coaches Convention, something that Jimbo Fisher decided wasn't important enough for him to attend the last few years. So my point being, this is big for him, but I always figured, I think he's going to get it figured out. One thing I've learned in life, smart people figure stuff out, right? And again, I hate to keep using a former SEC West rival in Alabama, but Kalen DeBoer is a guy that comes from a different region in the country. What does he do? He hires a really smart staff. He hires some really good personnel people, and it's the same with Mike Elko. And what I have been so impressed by with Mike Elko is he so clearly had a plan before he ever got to A&M. Now, he coached at Duke. He was obviously focused on the season, and I don't know at what point he actually realistically thought he was going to get that job. Probably not until the very last minute because they tried to hire Mark Stoops. Anyway, I bring it up because just look at what he's done since he got there. Love the staff that he's put together. Colin Klein is an offensive coordinator, is a rising star. Some of the defensive guys, Jay Bateman, a linebackers coach, the defensive line coach, I believe is coach. He goes by Coach Chaos, if I'm not mistaken. So great staff. Crushed it in the portal. And he obviously didn't have a ton of time with the 2024 recruiting class, but he did a reasonable job maintaining it. Now, A&M did lose a five-star named Dominic McKinley, but that kid is from Louisiana, ended up going to LSU. So it's not like he lost a kid from College Station or something like that. Point I'm trying to make, we'll wrap with this. Elko's a smart guy. I think he'll figure it out. Not here to make any promises about A&M's going to win this many games next year. They're going to win a national championship. But it is worth noting, I think I saw a stat, they returned the most snaps of any Power 5 team in college football next year, or in the Power 5 anyway. I think the coaching is certainly going to be improved. I like the portal moves. And I'm just here to say, smart guy. I think he gets it.